During the time period known as the Wild West, the Apache tribe, along with a number of other Native American tribes, was involved in confrontations with European settlers. The ruthless and violent treatment of imprisoned women by the Apache is going to be the topic of discussion in this movie. This is a reminder of the horrific human toll that was caused by intertribal wars and colonization. Did their punishments prove to be too terrible for them to bear? What were the extremely cruel methods that they employed in order to punish women? When the Apache seized women from other tribes or from European towns, they frequently subjected them to brutal treatment by their captors. This was in contrast to the situation in the past. They could be subjected to physical or sexual abuse, or they could be held as slaves. A number of the women who were held captive were compelled to travel alongside their captors on lengthy excursions, during which they were subjected to the elements, hunger, and thirst. Let's know the punishment techniques used by the Apache one by one. Capture. In the first place, women who were held captive by the Apache were frequently regarded as significant prizes. This was due to the fact that they could be utilized for a variety of purposes, including sexual services and work. Apache warriors were known to abduct women and use them as brides or concubines in some instances. There would be an expectation placed on these ladies to perform domestic responsibilities and to provide company to their captors. Despite this, a significant number of women who were held prisoner were either sold into slavery or traded to other tribes or European settlers. On numerous occasions, the Apache would trade prisoners for horses, firearms, and various other items. Due to the fact that they could be sold for a high price in the slave markets of Mexico and the American Southwest, women who were held as captives were particularly desirable. The circumstances of life as a captive were frequently harsh and challenging, even for those individuals who were not sold into slavery or taken as wives. Women who were held captive might be exposed to both physical and sexual torture at the hands of their captors. Additionally, they were frequently made to undergo long marches and difficult living circumstances. Mutilation. As we move on to the following one, have you ever heard of someone cutting off pieces of a person's body in order to obtain the required amount of information? If that is not the case, allow us to inform you that Apaches unquestionably believed in it. Consequently, the fourth on our list is mutilation. In the process of mutilation, various parts of the body, including fingers, toes, ears, noses, and genitalia, were severed from the body, typically with a knife or another sharp weapon. The invaders would take joy in inflicting agony and suffering on the victim, and they would frequently hold the victim down or bind them while the mutilation was taking place. A form of punishment and humiliation, mutilation was supposed to act as a warning to those who might challenge them. It was also intended to function as a kind of punishment. The Apache felt that by mutilating their enemies, they would be able to send a message that they were not to be taken lightly, and would also reduce the might of their adversaries. Is it even possible to fathom how terrible the tribes of the past made things? However, we want to assure you that this is nothing. Be prepared to experience a couple additional techniques that will send chills down your spine that are utilized by Apache raiders. Burning. The victim was tied to a stake or post and then set ablaze, frequently in front of other prisoners or members of the tribe. This practice was utilized in the practice of burning. The Apache were notorious for employing fires that burned slowly, which resulted in the victim experiencing excruciating anguish and agony for an extended period of time that lasted for a long time. In addition, they utilized torture flames, which were intended to cause the prisoner the greatest amount of agony and suffering possible. This was accomplished by heating up metal objects, such as branding irons, and then pressing them against the victim's skin. The objective of burning was not only to cause the victim to experience physical pain, but also to humiliate and degrade them. This is something that we would like to tell you. Have you heard that the approach that they used that caused the most discomfort was called running the gauntlet? The hostage was made to run between two rows of warriors who would beat and strike them with weapons as they passed by. This was done in order to gain control of the captive. Scalping. Despite the fact that this was risky, The next item on the list, which is termed scalping, is even more horrifying. Utilizing a knife or some other sharp weapon, scalping was a practice that entailed removing the scalp from the head of the victim, typically while the victim was still alive. Through the practice of scalping their adversaries, the Apache believed that they might gain the power and bravery of their adversaries for themselves. These individuals also held the belief that the scalp was a representation of triumph and a means of demonstrating their superiority over their adversaries. As a form of trophies, the Apache would frequently exhibit their scalps, either on their own bodies or on poles or other objects at their disposal. In addition to the fact that the scalps were frequently adorned with feathers or beads, the individuals would frequently engage in victory dances or chanting in the vicinity of them. Anting. Anting was the next dreadful method that they employed in their operations. The hostage was tied to an anthill, either face up or face down, and then left there to be attacked and stung by the ants. This was done in order to gain control over the situation. They felt that the victim would be slowly killed by the venom that was injected through the ant bites and stings, and that this was an appropriate kind of punishment for those who had wronged them. Depending on the severity of the punishment, the victim would be remained bound to the anthill for a period of time that could range from several hours to even many days. Over the course of this period, they would be subjected to the elements, and it is highly probable that they would experience thirst, hunger, and exposure. After watching this, it is clear that you will have a better understanding of how cruel and excruciating the world would have been in the past, when there were no rules to prevent it. Which of them did you feel to be the most horrifying of the bunch? We hope you liked this video, subscribe to the channel if you're a history addict, and please let us know about what civilization or time period we should talk about. Also, watch another video here.